Last year, the summer transfer window opened on June 10th, 2022, and assuming a similar timeframe for this year, the 2023 summer transfer window is less than 3 months away. So time is very much of the essence for Man United to address the various issues around our squad, like a starting striker, a backup right back, potentially a ball-playing goalkeeper, but most importantly, we need a partner in midfield for Casemiro. Because we cannot, and I can't stress this enough, cannot rely on the inconsistency of Fred or Scott McTominay to step into the limelight in European games against Barcelona or cup finals against Newcastle. I'd much rather we get a starting midfielder to play week in, week out, and use the likes of Christian Eriksen and Fred as squad rotation options. And this is where Orkun Kokcu of Feyenoord comes in. This Turkish midfielder is the complete package when it comes to box-to-box midfielders, and I'm here to show you exactly why he'll be the perfect fit for Erik ten Hag next season. As always, please drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy, and don't forget to turn on all notifications to never miss out on content just like this. Regular viewers of the channel will know that I always present a manager's style of play and tactics before analyzing a player. And there is some method to this madness that I'd like to explain here. Any player in world football that looks good or bad in a team looks good or bad for a reason. And that reason has to do with the specific role assigned by the manager, the quality of the teammates around them, and the team dynamics in general. Take Victor Osimhen for example. I see tons of United fans around the world being very excited about him potentially coming to United next season because he's tearing up trees for Napoli, and they're absolutely right to be excited. But if we take Osimhen out of Napoli and put him in Roma for example, who are managed by Jose Mourinho and at least on paper have a worse squad than Napoli, would we see the same output from Osimhen this season? Probably not. And don't get me wrong, Roma might be third instead of fifth just by adding someone of the quality of Osimhen to the front line, but then we might still be talking about a 60 to 80 million striker instead of a 100 to 150. And you can extend this example to the United squad as well. Look at Rashford under Erik ten Hag versus Rashford under Ole. He's a different player, and likewise you can look at Martial or Fred or Luke Shaw or even Bruno Fernandes. Our current system put together a certain way with specific players under the management of Erik ten Hag is getting the best out of these players this season. So whenever we evaluate a new transfer target for Manchester United or any other team, it makes sense to look at similarities between the system that that player is currently playing in and the system of the team that he's been linked to. Because then we can say with as much certainty as possible that such and such player will be the right fit for such and such manager at this team. With all this in mind, let's take a quick look at Arne Slot's system at Feyenoord before we dive into analyzing Orkun Kokcu at Man United. So Arne Slot likes his teams to start in 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3, but in possession they most often play a 2-3-3-2 that looks like this. In this shape, you have the central striker in Jimenez up top with one of the wingers providing the width. Behind them, you have the 10 with the other winger holding a little deeper, and one of the double pivot pushes up into this line to play in the inside spaces. So this can be either Kokcu or Vifer depending on the situation that presents itself. Then in defensive midfield, you have the other CDM, so this could be again Vifer or Kokcu, playing next to the fullbacks who provide the width in this line, and behind them you have the two center backs. At a high level, Arne Slot's philosophy includes a very aggressive press out of possession that involves 3 to 4 players who work together to close out the spaces in and around the ball carrier and cut off the passing lanes to their teammates. This is very similar to the gegenpressing that Klopp deploys at Liverpool or other managers deploy across continental Europe. Then in possession, Arne Slot prefers a vertical, crisp, and rapid style of play where he wants the ball to be moved fast with risky passes that break the opponent's lines, so that his team can be in and around the opposition box within a few touches and passes. And Slot's double pivot, specifically Vifer and Kokcu, are key to playing this style of football because he expects them to constantly move in between the first and second lines of press from the other team in order to progress the ball. So this could mean one of them dropping towards the center backs in this line here to pick up the ball and dribble in between that first and second line, or one of them dropping deep to relieve the pressure off the center backs, pick up the ball and find the other one further up the pitch. And the stats back up Feyenoord's vertical style of football, as they have completed the second highest number of progressive passes per 90 this season with 80 per game, and they have an impressive 81.2% completion rate for these passes. Now from a player perspective, Slot likes to have players that are reasonably press resistant and can pass and move in tight spaces, and they have the tactical intelligence to play multiple positions. And if you find yourself smiling as a United fan right now, that's because Erik ten Hag is almost the same exact footballing philosophy as Arne Slot. He likes his fullbacks to play in midfield, he likes his midfielders to drop in between the center backs to progress the ball, and he likes his forwards to occasionally drop into midfield to create overloads in central areas. So what does this mean? This means that we can reasonably expect a player from this Feyenoord team, who are sitting at the top of Eredivisie with 6 points ahead of Ajax, to fit into Erik ten Hag's system at Man United. They will obviously take time to get used to his specific system and get used to the Premier League, but there are enough similarities between the two systems where we can be confident that someone like Orkun Kokcu will be able to adapt to Erik ten Hag and do well in this Manchester United team. So let's take a look at some game footage from Feyenoord's Europa League game against Shakhtar Donetsk and see what the eye test tells us. We start with the Shakhtar goalkeeper trying to build out the ball from the back, and as we play it, we see the Feyenoord front three starting to press the Shakhtar backline. And as the ball goes back to the goalkeeper here, we see Jimenez, the striker, getting ready to press him in this area. And as he manages to press the goalkeeper, we can see that Feyenoord's number 10 Szymanski is cutting off the passing line to the CDM through the middle. And Idrissi, the left winger, is left with marking two players on Shakhtar's right, which means one of them will be free to pick up the ball. As we play it along, Idrissi is on the right center back, which leaves the Shakhtar right back with space to receive the ball, turn and pass it forward. As the center back then turns to pass it inside into the CDM, we see that Kokcu has now appeared in the screen to press this right back who's in open space. So as soon as the CDM receives it, he plays it first time into the right back, and guess what? Kokcu ends up intercepting the ball and gets into this space here where he's free to put in a cross into the box and create a chance for Feyenoord. This pressing right here by Kokcu is very much a tactic of Arne Slot, and Feyenoord do this on both sides of the pitch. The three closest players to the ball carrier press the passing options man for man, and then Kokcu or Viper, depending on which side it's on, join in as the fourth presser to win the ball back. Timing is everything in situations like these, because if you're too eager or too lax, the opposition can just play around you and you're left extremely exposed on the counterattack. In fact, I think, to draw a comparison to a United player, we all think that Fred is good at this, right? In terms of hounding down the ball carrier to win back possession. But actually, he's often too eager to press the ball carrier, and he gets found out against certain teams because he doesn't necessarily pick and choose his moments to go and press. He's always like constantly pressing, which puts him out of position quite often. So this is an underrated skill that Kokcu possesses, as we'll see in the next clip as well. Here we start with a Shakhtar player picking up the ball in his own half and trying to dribble forward to progress the ball. And pay attention to Kokcu's involvement in this play. As the ball carrier gets forward, the first Feyenoord player goes in for a tackle, which is avoided by this player playing a 1-2 with this Shakhtar player right here. So the ball should be in this area right here in the next few seconds. And we see Kokcu's awareness in this moment as he's getting ready to attack that space as well. Sure enough, the ball carrier plays the 1-2 and gets the ball back, but Kokcu is already on his way, so now he has nowhere to go other than perhaps playing a pass out to the winger. But Kokcu does enough to get this guy off balance, and the ball carrier loses out on the ball to the Feyenoord center back. And within a second of this happening, within a second of Shakhtar losing the ball, Feyenoord are 5v4 on the counterattack. And this exact play right here actually leads to Feyenoord's opening goal, which is well taken by the young Mexican center forward Jimenez, but it comes from Kokcu's pressing in midfield. He has this knack of knowing exactly when to press, and it often results in good things for his team. Next, let's take a look at how Kokcu is in possession. We start with Kokcu receiving the ball in midfield. As he passes it to the center back, you can see him gesturing to slow down the play because Shakhtar are pressing in numbers here. And earlier, when we discussed the first and second lines of opposition pressure and how Arne Slot likes to use his double pivot to get in between those two lines, this is what I was referring to. He is currently in between the two lines of pressure here, and he would like to get into this space here and progress the ball himself or pass it forward into Viper or a winger that's ahead of him. As the ball goes between the two center backs, we see Shakhtar deploying their own press, and Kokcu is still behind that first line of pressure, so Feyenoord are being patient with the ball. So the ball ends up going back to the goalkeeper, and we see the center backs splitting here to make the pitch wider, which makes space for the pass into Kokcu. But since the Shakhtar striker here blocks off the angle to Kokcu, the center back receives the ball on the left-hand side. And finally, Kokcu is now in some space to receive the ball from the center back. As Kokcu receives it, 3 Shakhtar players are in position to press him, and 1 is off screen that you can't see necessarily here. But he manages to time a perfect pass into the path of his left back, which puts him clear through in tons of space ahead of him, and with the potential for Feyenoord to create a dangerous chance because so many Shakhtar players are ahead of the ball. Orkun Kokcu is one of those players who is so good on the ball in terms of passing, dribbling, and shooting that he could play as a 6, as an 8, or a 10. And this specific play was a perfect example of him doing a CDM's duties. Next, we'll see an example of his passing range. Here we see the Feyenoord center back receiving the ball in possession, and you can see Kokcu already scanning around to see who's around him in terms of Shakhtar players and where his own teammates are. As soon as Kokcu receives it, he gets his head up again to find ball progression opportunities. And within a few seconds, he identifies a switch of play to the left wing and gets ready to play it. And this switch of play, he manages to execute on an absolute dime as we see the ball going straight to the left winger here. So like I said, his technical abilities are so good that he can either be a proper CDM or a deep lying playmaker or a box-to-box midfielder or a pure creative 10. And finally, we get a glimpse into Kokcu's shooting abilities. Here we see Shakhtar trying to progress the ball on the left wing, but the ball carrier takes a loose touch and it lands to Szymanski while Kokcu is in acres of space in the middle. As Kokcu receives the ball, you can see how Shakhtar are giving him tons of space still by continuously backing off, which turns out to be a huge mistake. Because Kokcu is allowed to get about 20 yards out without any pressure on him, he fires a shot towards the far corner and ends up scoring. And the goalkeeper here has absolutely no chance to save this ball. So we've seen Kokcu pretty much do it all this game. It's clear to me that he can press, he can pass, he can shoot, he can dribble. He's the absolute quintessential box-to-box midfielder. And there are 2 things about him that really surprised me. 1, for a 21-year-old, his game intelligence is absolutely elite. And you need this level of game intelligence in order to be playing as a CDM or a deep-lying playmaker. 2, he's the captain of this team, and he could actually take them to the Eredivisie title this season ahead of a team like Ajax. So for him to be such a passionate, involved, and quality leader on and off the pitch is very, very impressive. Look, it's clear to me that this guy is a quality player, and if he had a Brazilian, Argentinian, or French passport, he'd be worth over £100 million quite easily. But even if United did decide to buy him in the summer, where exactly does he fit in? In my opinion, he would be the perfect fit next to Casemiro in the double pivot, where he's the one that drops into the back line to pick up the ball and progress it forward, and he's allowed a bit more freedom to link up the play and join attack. Or, because of how versatile he is, Ten Hag could use him and Bruno as 8s in front of Casemiro in the inside spaces here, where we would dominate the possession against low blocks. And this is actually similar to how Arteta uses Xhaka and Odegaard in his team. So it's clear to me that Kokcu would replace Eriksen in the starting 11, and we've already seen that Kokcu has all the technical abilities of an Eriksen because he's 2-footed, he has the passing range to pick out any player across the pitch, and he takes corners, free kicks, and can take penalties as well. On top of this, he has elite pressing abilities, he can defend one-on-one, and he has decent pace for a midfielder. Obviously, the biggest difference between someone like Kokcu and Eriksen is that one of them has done it at the highest level in the Premier League for 2 different clubs, whereas the other one is still only 21 years old doing it in the Dutch league. But Kokcu has something about him that Feyenoord or Eredivisie fans will know. He has that fire in his belly, that passion that can make you a great player in any league. You can just see it in his body language when he plays on the pitch. And besides, we know of several quality players that have come out of the Eredivisie and done well in Europe, like Frenkie de Jong, Matthijs de Ligt, Lisandro Martinez of course, and Eriksen himself back in 2013 when he moved from Ajax to Tottenham. So there's no reason why Orkun Kokcu couldn't make the move to the Premier League and succeed under a great coach like Erik ten Hag, who plays a very similar system to the one he's playing in at Feyenoord. I think with 2 years left on his deal, United should be able to get him quite easily between 50 to 60 million euros. And at 21, he should be able to contribute to this midfield for the next 5 to 10 years. Get in the comments below with your thoughts. Do you think we should sign Kokcu? Are you convinced by this video? If not, who would you like United to sign? Also, I will be releasing a video very shortly analyzing the stats behind potential midfield signings for Manchester United, so stick around for that. Thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.